big shout out to Yenny Ramos and Charlotte Newhook for subscribing to my channel. Thank you very much. And for everyone else that might not know, because it is a fairly new thing, I will be picking 1 or 2 random subscribers from my subscription list. So don't forget to subscribe for your chance for a shout out. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I will be interviewing Ashley Marie from Ashley Marie Soap. How are you going, Ashley?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this chat with me. I'm very, very honoured. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. And the idea behind the Soap Makers Lounge, and I started it particularly because people in Australia, it is actually quite a small soap making community, and I thought I would create some sort of avenue for soap makers like to come together and have a chat and to inspire each other, as well as sharing ideas and talking about your journey. And I got such positive feedback from people in Australia. They were asking if I would kind of branch out overseas. So I've been interviewing people from UK and USA as well. So once again, thanks so much for being a part of the Soap Makers Lounge, because I know some of my viewers are very excited to see you.
Well, you're so very welcome. I'm excited to be on here with you.
Thank you. And so whereabouts are you located?
I'm located in St. George, Utah. It's southern Utah, so it's about probably 2 hours away from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Right.
I'm close to the Grand Canyon. I'm close to Zion National Park.
Yeah.
I'm pretty close to California, too.
All fantastic landmarks.
Thank you. I love it here.
Oh, yes. And I love the accent of Utah. People around that area, it's really nice, actually.
Thank you. I love the Australian accent. So.
Oh, thank you. I know I'm not meaning to compare you to them, but I watched The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And so,
okay, cool.
Look, I'm sure you're much more classier than they are. But the accent, I like the accent. So.
Thank you.
So, tell me a little bit about what got you started in soap making. What was the spark?
I never even dreamed that I would be making soap for a living. But back in 2015, I have a big family. My parents had 13 children, so I have 12 brothers. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
And every year, it's really hard to buy everybody Christmas gifts because most of the time, I don't know if they're going to like what I buy them. And so anyways, this particular year, I was working really hard and I was just like, I don't want to buy any Christmas gifts this year. I just want to make something I was thinking maybe just a goodie plate with sweets and desserts and stuff, or I felt like going shopping for all those people just sounded way too hard, especially because I just didn't know if they'd like anything that I buy them. So I was like, I'm just going to make a goodie plate. Well, I happened to be scrolling on Instagram and I saw a picture of some handmade soap from a friend that I had met in college.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I could not believe how beautiful it looked. And I was always raised around natural products. Like my mom was really into gardening. She was really into growing her own food and making her own cheese. And we had a cow, so my brothers milked the cows every day and stuff. So I was already kind of in the natural world where we tried not to, we always drink milk that was from the cow, not from the store. We made homemade bread, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
But we had never made soap before. My mom always just bought soap, So when I saw her soap, I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I want to make Christmas gifts. That's what I want to make. I looked into it. I started researching it a little bit, and I just got on Amazon and bought a book called Soap Making for Beginners. And I bought all the ingredients, and everything arrived, and I remember just being so afraid of using lye. It was so scary to me. I covered my whole body, and my very first batch of soap. So in the book it says to use a container that can withstand lye, and so I thought a casserole dish. I was in my sister's house. I was living there at the time by myself. And I just opened up the pantry and there was a casserole dish right there. And I thought, well, it can withstand heat because casseroles go in the oven. And so I start mixing the lye and the lye beads in the water. And all of a sudden, the whole top of the bowl blew up like 3 feet in the air and then crashed.
Oh my gosh.
It was so scary because I was already super nervous about lye and all the precautions and just, it could blind you. You could get burned. All this crazy stuff. So when the bowl blew up, I freaked out. I went running out of the house, just screaming. But the weird thing is, I never have understood this this chemistry. But the bottom of the bowl, where the actual lye was, did not break. So where the liquid was, it didn't break. Just the top of it. It was so weird. But anyways, so yeah, that was my first. That's how I got into soap making. So I kept it a secret, and for Christmas, I just showed up and handed everybody handmade soap. Everybody was so shocked. They couldn't believe I made it. And so after that, it was just like such a rewarding feeling. I remember my first batch the next morning when I woke up and walked into my pantry and saw that it got hard and that it was actual soap. I was so proud of myself. I literally just felt so amazed. It was just so rewarding. And so anyways, honestly, I happened to just want to make it for Christmas gifts. And it was such a success that I was like, maybe I'll just make a few batches and sell them in my hometown on Facebook. And I made a few batches and I posted them on Facebook. And within like a day, I had sold like 100 bars of soap.
Oh, wow.
A bunch of people from all over my community came over to buy soap. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And so from there, it just went. And obviously, it's been 6 years now. So I've grown so much. But yeah, that's how I got started.
Yes, I can imagine. Yeah. And I have to say, your soaps are absolutely gorgeous. They're absolutely gorgeous. And I can see why. And it's so weird, but like when I look at you and I look at your soaps, I don't know, you kind of look like your soaps. I don't know why, but you kind of do. Like you got the colourful look to you.
Well, thank you.
You got this colourful look. Like you just radiate natural beauty. The soaps radiate natural beauty. It's I don't know. Like I'm just saying they're kind of go hand in hand for some reason. I don't know why, but
thank you.
I think that's why people really love watching you and why your products have really done so well. And of course, I can only assume if I was local, I would definitely buy some of your soaps to try. I'm sure they feel amazing on the skin because I've looked at the ingredients. I'm like, oh my God, yes. We have a lot of common, yes.
Well, thank you.
No worries, no problems. I give compliments where they're due.
Thank you.
So, of course, like, your first few batches and, they started to, sell. And how would you describe, like, say, the difference between when you first started making soap as compared to now? Like, how would you explain the difference between then and now?
Well, the main difference is my skill level. Like when I first started, there was so many things I didn't understand, and I was always kind of in a hurry. I didn't like research things a lot. So whenever issues would arise, I wasn't sure what happened, but I would still keep doing it and keep making the same mistakes because I was just like thinking that the next time it'll turn out better,
Yeah.
But I didn't understand the chemistry of soap and like what's actually happening, and I did not understand how to use essential oils. From day one, I always wanted to use as natural as possible, so I always wanted to use essential oils. So I didn't understand like the different chemical compositions of essential oils, and so I had a lot of batches that weren't beautiful. They didn't look amazing. A lot of messed up batches and lots of air bubbles and lots of seeping. I made so many mistakes, even with my salt bar. Like I didn't understand that you need to cut salt soap like the same day you pour it. And I learned the hard way. I wasted such a big batch of soap because I waited like 4 days to cut it, and it was too hard.
Yeah.
But mostly just my skill level and just the understanding of the chemistry of what's going on behind soap making. And like, so yeah, like if you scroll down on my Instagram, like from my beginning posts, it's incredible the difference in my soap. Oh my gosh, the way it looks, the way it feels, the recipes, everything about it I just kept growing, and I ended up a guild. It's called the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild in Dallas, Texas.
Right.
And there's so many scientists there and professional expert soap makers. And I went there and just asked tons of questions. And when I got back, I put everything in my store 25% off because I wanted everything that was already made gone off my shelves, and I wanted to start from scratch. Because I just learned so much about essential oils and like how to use them, and I learned about different oil properties and what would be best for recipes, and it's just incredible what I learned. It was so worth the money, and I look forward to going again. So
yeah, excellent. And I know for me, I struggled at the beginning, particularly with essential oils. Especially with, more delicate oils like citrus and them not sticking very well. And after they cure, you can't smell anything. And did you find like the more you played around with different notes and blending appropriately that now obviously you would have, longer lasting scents in your soaps compared to like when you first started?
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember lavender bar. No matter how much lavender essential oil I used, with time it would just fade and it would smell like nothing.
Right.
And it happened with the citrus oils. It happened with quite a few other essential oils that I was using, and I didn't know what to do. I just thought there was no solution. Like you just use the soap as fast as you can if you want to smell good. Well, I did that for literally years. I did that for 2 years of my business, where I would just, try and put as much essential oils as I could in, and then just hope it would stay, Well, when I went to the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild, they had a class on essential oils, and I told them about my, the problems with them, and this lady, I can't even remember her name, but she just said, essential oils need a fixative to help hold them in, Right.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And she's like, they also like push the actual scent that you're going to forward. So when you smell it, like that's the first smell that you smell,
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I just like asked a ton of questions, and I bought an essential oil book for soap making. Mm-hmm. And I learned how to use fixatives. I learned how to add other essential oils, because before I was always just like, oh, lavender soap. Okay. A bunch of lavender. Oh, lemon soap. A bunch of lemon. Like, I wouldn't mix and blend other essential oils to like make the lavender smell stronger,
Yes.
I feel like that's one of my biggest accomplishments with my soap making is the fact that I've learned how to hold in the scent and like mix essential oils to make like the scent that I want come through stronger,
Yeah. And I find like, and of course in my case, I had similar issues. There's not a lot of information out there regarding that. It's actually quite hard to come by. So you're pretty lucky you met that lady, and for her to tell you all that stuff, because when I was having those issues and I was, Googling, why this, why that, I couldn't find absolutely anything, and I just went back to the drawing board. And what actually made me kind of understand it a bit better was perfume. So I came across this perfume video, and they were talking about the different notes. And again, as you said, about fixing with a good base, and I'm like, okay, so maybe I'll try that. And I went ahead and tried that, and it actually started to work. I'm like, okay, wow. But I guess I was searching the wrong thing. I was saying how to create longer lasting scents in cold process soap making, when actually I should have been looking at how to fix, essential oils in perfumes, or how to make them last longer. And I was kind of focusing on just in soap making. So I didn't find the answers in soap making. I had to look outside of soap making, then I found the answers, and then I came back to the drawing board and I started to mix everything. And like I fix every blend that I make with 1% cedarwood atlas. So
I do too. I do that too.
Yeah.
I learned that at the Handcrafted Soap Guild.
Oh my gosh, that's the best thing you can do. And if you do like 3% lavender, 1% cedarwood atlas, the smell, even after 6 months, it could be on the curing rack, you'll pick it up and you'll smell, and the smell of the lavender is still there. So it's amazing how, blending appropriately can create a really long-lasting, beautiful bar. And I've seen some of your blends. I'm like, oh, wow. Like some of your blends that look great. I think one of them's got ylang ylang, jasmine, and patchouli, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh, yeah, I can just imagine. Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, it's amazing. The knowledge is power. When
Yeah.
you gain, or when you, at least I've noticed with myself, when I just make the effort to, even if it costs money to gain knowledge, it ends up paying off 100-fold. Because I felt like even after I did those minor switches to my essential oil blending and the way that I use them in soap, I felt like my sales went up because the
Yeah, absolutely.
smells are stronger, so people like them, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I think it's in an upward spiral now, like with essential oils. I remember, like, even I've been making soap for now almost 4 years, so it's a relatively new thing for me. But I remember when I first started, and even though it's not a huge amount of time, and between now, the amount of people knowing what essential oils are now, like, is considerably more than when I first started. People still were, like, some people knew it was kind of niche, but now I find it's, the more time goes by, the more popular it's becoming, and people are understanding the importance of, using essential oils, like, based on aromatherapy principles. So it's just amazing. And even if I go back 15 years ago, no one knew anything about essential oils, and that's still in my lifetime. That no one knew anything about it. It was such a rare thing for anyone to really have information on.
It's incredible the boom in the essential oil
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
But there's so many amazing scents to play with, and it's just endless. Like you could blend, you can come up with 1,000,000 different blends with only 10 essential oils.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's incredible, the healing properties of essential oils, and I love them. Like I love working with them. I feel joy when I work with them. I feel like I'm connected with my product. I just love it. But yeah, it is incredible how new they are. Like, I mean, I never even knew what essential oils were until like maybe 10 years ago,
Yeah, it's fairly new. Like, it's always been there, like, but it's just wasn't really popular. Like, no one really knew anything about it, and people were still kind of using, fragrance oils, and they weren't understanding the difference between, like, a lavender fragrance oil and lavender essential oil. But now people are realizing the differences between the two, and you can really make your product stand out by, when you claim, like, scented with essential oils, aromatherapy, this, that. People are now connecting the dots. So I find that it's easier for, like, soap makers now, when they're trying to make clean products, for them to get their product out there. People actually know what they're putting out there and appreciate what they're actually doing,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I always ask soap makers this. I know for me, I realised immediately, when even from your first batch of soap, like when you started using it, did you realise the skin benefits from the get-go?
With essential oils?
Just with essential oils, and just even with soap making, when you first started making soap, did you notice the skin benefits?
Absolutely. My first batch was a really good recipe. And so I noticed immediately, like, I didn't really feel like it dried my skin out. It felt just like really soft, and it also didn't leave a film on my skin.
Yeah.
So I felt like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, this is so cool. And I feel like just the knowledge, or just knowing that I'm using a product that doesn't have any synthetic chemicals in it, I feel like it automatically just makes me feel like better about my skin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I'm going to be honest, there were times where I didn't understand how to create recipes. I didn't understand how different oils require different amounts of lye for saponification, because at that time, like, I was just following a recipe. So the recipe I was following, like, if it called for palm oil and I didn't have it, I would just use a different oil, and I wouldn't change the amount of lye.
Okay.
And
right.
so there were times where my soap was very drying, and then there was some times where my soap was extremely stringy, like gooey.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't always felt good on my skin. When it was really drying, the pH was just way too high, And so And so, yeah, like it's been a learning process for sure. But the very first batch of soap I made, I definitely loved it. I used fennel essential oil. I'll never forget. Put a little bit of oatmeal in it, and it was really, really awesome.
Yeah, I love sweet fennel. It's beautiful. Smells like licorice. Very nice.
Yes, I love it.
I hate licorice, but I love the smell of licorice. It smells really good.
Yes, it does.
And, so you said you've been obviously making and selling soaps for 6 years now.
Yes.
Wow. Excellent. And where do you sell your products? Obviously, you have a website. And do you sell your products anywhere else or just on the website? Yeah.
So I sell wholesale to about 20 stores.
Oh, wow.
So there's like like gift shops to sell the soap. I have boutiques to sell it, different spas that sell it, a couple just clothing stores that have a little display of soap. But yeah, so I mostly sell online, but I do have 20 stores that I keep stocked. And when I first started my business, though, for the first 3 years, I sold at trade shows and farmers markets and festivals and stuff like that. So I was traveling a lot because I'm pretty central right here in St. George. So if there was like a big vegan event going on in California, then I would drive the 5 hours and go to it. Or Phoenix, Arizona, or Salt Lake City, Utah. Like there was just anytime there was like I had like this program that would tell me when different festivals were going on. So I did that a lot, and it was so draining. It was so exhausting. And so that's when I was just like, you know what? I need to focus on getting wholesale products in stores because it was by the time I calculated all the expenses of what it costs to have to do a trade show and travel and my time and everything, I was pretty much earning a wholesale price anyways, you know? So, but yeah, I did that for 3 years. And then finally one day I was like, you know what? My business is good enough to where I don't ever have to do a trade show again, like, because my online sales were good enough and also my wholesale orders were doing really good. But so those are the only 2 ways that I sell right now. But before, like when I got my business started, I wouldn't have been able to make it without trade shows and farmers markets and stuff.
Because you've got to start somewhere, you know, like to become, especially, you know, confident. And I find like each batch of soap you make, you just get better and better and better, and you just want to improve. You find little things to improve. Nothing's ever a waste. Like I don't look at anything as ever being a waste, and I'm sure you understand what I mean when I say that. Yeah, so
absolutely,
really important. And what are some of the challenges like you faced when like starting the business as well and trying to get your products out there? You know, you mentioned you traveled around. What's the challenge? Like any challenges you faced that you had to kind of maneuver your own way, like, you know, through and.
Oh, yes. I had so many challenges. And, you know, running a business and being an entrepreneur is always challenging. Like, it never ends. There's always lessons learned. There's always growth. It's never ending, like, the potential. So it's like you're always feeling like, hey, I could be doing better. Okay, I could grow bigger. Like, okay, what can I be doing more? Like, what new stuff is out there? Like, what's selling? What's not selling? Like, anyways, but so one of my big challenges was I was just such a small company that there was so much work. And so I couldn't find a balance between work and play. Like I literally would work 12 to 14 hours a day. I would stay up late at night. On the weekends, I was making soap or I was selling it at trade shows, and I'd come home and make more. And I was just working so much, I almost reached a point of just burnout. And after my first year of selling soap, where it was like a legit business where that's all I did for a living was make and sell soap. My first year, like I almost burned myself out. After Christmas, the holidays almost wiped me out. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, it's not worth it. It's just too much work. And my brother's just like, Ashley, it's because you need to hire somebody. Like, you are working way too hard. You have to, you know? So that was like a game changer when I finally hired help, but I didn't have the money, and I didn't have the means, or pretty much I didn't have the means to hire somebody yet. I felt like every time I thought, okay, I could pay them $12 an hour, like that's a lot of money. I could do it myself, you know?
Yeah.
So one of my biggest challenges was that I couldn't stop working, and I just overworked myself and almost reached burnout where I almost gave up on my business. And now I don't do that. Like now, and it still takes discipline. Like even right now after this call, I want to like go pour my oils for tomorrow's batches so I can be ahead of the game for Friday because it's the weekend, you know? Yeah. But I'm like, no, it's going to be like 8:30. No, I need to rest, go do some reading, like go do things that I love, because when you just constantly work and work and work, you could literally work yourself into a grave, and it becomes a burden. It becomes where you don't want to work anymore. It's like you dread it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a challenge. And then there was hundreds of challenges. I mean, just my recipes, not like I said before, just soap seizing on me, bad batches, and like not understanding why, not understanding what is wrong with what I'm doing. Like I did everything perfect and it didn't turn out. And also just like small things like my labeling. Like I had such a challenge with labeling.
Yeah.
I put way too much effort into it. When I first started, I was like putting lace and burlap around with a glue gun, gluing the back, and then gluing the little button on with the label. It took so long. I mean, it took just as long to label the soap as it did to make it. And so, I was so close-minded. I thought, you know, if I change my labels to paper labels, people aren't going to buy my soap. Like that's what makes my soap sell, is how cute it is, you know?
Yeah.
And I did that for 2 years where I did burlap and lace, and it was so dreadful. And one Christmas I had like 2,000 bars of soap to label. And I was just like, this is a freaking joke. Like I have to get paper labels. I don't care if I lose all of my customers and have to gain a new clientele. I don't care. Like this isn't worth it. So I hired a graphic designer, and we spent hours designing labels. A new logo. I changed my logo. I was so worried about doing that, but he had all kinds of advice on why it's so important to change your logo and all this stuff. And so that was really challenging, but it was a game changer in my business. So when I finally switched and just opened up my mind and took a risk, like I gained so much from it. Like it went from taking 3 minutes to label a bar of soap to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, it was incredible. And so, and you know, no one ever complained. I think 2 people asked me about the label change, but everyone loved it, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a really big lesson for me. But there's been a lot of challenges, even just, another challenge is spending money and investing in something that was a failure.
Right. Yes.
I invested in some molds that were a complete failure. They didn't work for what I needed. I couldn't return them. Investing in trade shows that didn't sell very well, where I barely broke even. I didn't earn any money. That was really hard because it was so much work to be there, and then you're barely making sales. So that happened a few times. Bad decisions with money, trying to make my business grow. But like you said, there's never any mistakes. Like every mistake that we made, there's a lesson learned in it, and we'll never do it again, So there's lots of growth in the mistakes and in the challenges, and I've learned and grown so much. It's incredible.
Yeah, I can just imagine. Actually, I was talking to we've become really good friends, and I consider her actually my mentor as well. And her name's Ellie from Ellie's Everyday. She has a YouTube channel. She's got quite a large following, and we chat, pretty much like a few times a week now. And I was similar to what you said about being burnt out. I've kind of at that stage at the moment where I got really excited for about a year and a half, and I introduced things outside of soap making, like balms and liquid soaps and candles. And as much as I love them, my passion is bar soap, and now I'm looking at minimizing my range, because I think I took on too much, and I'm just gonna have one line of candle jars, one line of lip balms instead of 5 or 6 different lines, just kind of keep it simple, because what I absolutely love, the 2 things I love is bar soap and aromatherapy, and combining them two together is my passion. So I just kind of want to let go of the extra stuff that's not really doing me any good at the moment. So I can relate to being burnt out and getting excited. You want to do, a lot of things, and then you kind of reevaluate what you're doing. And I'm at that point too. It's so funny that you mentioned the packaging. I'm still doing the packaging like that. So I wrap the packaging around and I get hemp wick, and then I wrap it around and I tie it. And it is taking me a long time, as you said, after, a couple of weeks of constantly making soap. It could be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 soaps on the rack. And then when they finish curing, I'm like, oh no, like I have to sit there and like wrap each soap. And they look great, but time-wise, I just can't do it anymore. Like, it's really, so everything you just said, I totally understand. Like, I relate to, and I think it's important for other people to be aware of that, because when you're starting a business, you don't think of all these things. And I don't think a soap maker, they're loving, their hobby, and it starts off a hobby, and then it comes into, you want to start a business with it, and you don't realize all these things that go into it, but you realize, like a little, I wouldn't say too late, but you realize after you've introduced, a lot of products and you're kind of selling them out there, that's when you kind of realize what you're doing wrong, or,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, like that was another reason why I created the Soap Makers Lounge as well. So other soap makers, whether they've got an established business, doesn't matter whether you're established or you're starting out, there's always room to learn. I'm always learning. I haven't stopped learning. I'm always looking at other soap makers, and it's not so much for me to copy what they're doing, but it's to make myself more efficient. Efficiency, I think, is the number one in a handmade business. If you're not efficient, then it's dead weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for sharing that. Like, I think viewers would really appreciate your experience in that. And I'll ask you this too, and I'm sure you would have the answer for it. Did you find it difficult to break into the market in a way of comparing handmade soap with commercial soap people buy the supermarket? Did you find that you had to kind of educate people a little bit that what you buy in the supermarket is not real soap and it's not doing any, good for your skin, compared to, handmade soap that is, a big bulk of handmade soap is oil, carrier oils? Did you find that you had to kind of explain that to potential customers, or?
No, I feel like when I first started out, like I said, I went to trade shows for 2 years. And so, I mean, my display said on it, all natural handmade soap. And so most people that wanted to buy my soap, they'd already had previous experience with handmade soap or something like that. But where I did feel like sometimes I had to educate people was like one time this guy came up to my booth and he's like, bar soap is like from the Stone Ages. Like you need to make body wash. Like body wash is where it's at, And I just didn't I just let him know a body wash has a lot of ingredients in it that are very harmful for the skin, and they actually cause people to break out in rashes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have ever gone if you ever gone to the supermarket and bought a body wash there, but the scent is so bad. I'm like, I cannot, it's so strong. I'm like, I don't understand how people buy this stuff. But
yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, so I also, one challenge that I felt like I had or on educating people was not all handmade soap is natural.
Right, exactly.
Because there's a lot of chemicals that people can still use while making handmade soap, like synthetic fragrance oil, synthetic colors, micas, and all that stuff is just as bad as commercial soap. Like if you look at the side effects to some of those things, like the colors, the hot green and hot pink and all of those different colors, like there's a lot of side effects for the skin. And if it gets in any kind of like your nose, if you breathe it in, if it gets into any of your anything like that. So I had to talk to people about that, like not all handmade soap is created equal.
That's right.
And so that was where it was for me, not necessarily conventional or commercial soap, because people that are buying or interested in natural soap, they already kind of have an idea what it is,
Yeah, I see. Right. I guess you're kind of lucky. Like, I find, like, especially now I'm chatting to a lot of soap makers, it depends on location. It depends where you are. So I found here in Australia, for me in Sydney, because I'm in Sydney, I found that the biggest challenge was people saying, oh, well, I can go to the supermarket and buy, commercial soap for $2. What's the benefit of me buying, your soap for $7 or $8, And I'm like, well, as the reasons you mentioned about the ingredients and about, like, it's not real soap, the bar soaps in the supermarket, and I had to kind of tell them why. And then they tried it, and then they kind of jumped on board and they realized the benefits. But I think that, for me, was one of my biggest challenges. I was always compared to commercial brands, and I'm like, well, you can't compare the two, because one's made in a factory and one's made in my home, because I'm at home, I'm a home business, and you can't really compare the two. Like, it's just, like, there's no comparison.
Absolutely. I totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And this topic doesn't really come up a lot, but I thought I'll probably ask, because you are making a really large quantity, and I know I faced this issue when I first started. Did you find that when you first started, especially like quantity, like buying in larger quantities, like raw materials, that your profits were really low for a while when you first started? Did you find that you had to really keep at it for you to, have more bulk buying power with your suppliers? And how long? I know it took me at least 2.5 years to kind of really start earning a profit. Would you say, like, it would be the same for you, like in America and like where you are located? Do you think it would be the same sort of thing?
Oh yeah. When I first started my business, I would order most of my ingredients on Amazon, and just like 16 ounces of this and 30 ounces of that, and like this and that, But it took me probably about 2 years.
Yeah.
Exactly. It took me 2 years where I finally was like, okay, I know that my product sells. I know that if I make the product, that I will make my money back. It was like a sure thing, because if I just went to a trade show or farmer's market, like, I knew I would make money. And so once I had that confidence, then it wasn't scary for me to purchase in bulk. So I ordered my first drum of coconut oil and my first drum of olive oil. And it was scary, like, to spend that much money on so much oil, But because I was confident in my product, and because I had already been selling for 2 years, then I was like, okay, if I just make this investment, like, it's going to be worth it, because obviously it's way cheaper to buy in bulk. Yeah, but obviously the initial cost is a lot, Yeah. And so once I did the first big purchase, like, it never was scary again for me. Like, ever since then, I've just been purchasing in bulk, I can never go back.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know what was going through my mind, like, when I first started buying in bulk, is it's going to expire in 2 years. Like, I was really fixated on expiry dates and best before dates. I'm like, what about if I don't use it all? What about if it goes to waste? What about if it doesn't sell? What about this? And I've just wasted, all this money buying, like, things in bulk. But then again, once you make the purchase and things move and you're using it, before you know it, you need to make another purchase. Like, oh, okay, well, this is okay now. Like, I was worried. What was I so worried for?
Yes, I totally get it.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And what advice would you give to, like, new soap makers or soap makers that want to start a business out of their hobby or their passion for soap making?
My advice would be I have a lot of advice, but one would be, don't be afraid to spend money. When you're starting a business, it takes money to make money. And it sounds so cliche, and I know that that's like something that everybody says, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly just being a cheapskate and you're not creating good products, then they're not going to sell. So when you invest in good quality oils, good quality ingredients, and nice molds, and you invest in your knowledge, like if I would have taken if I would have gone to that handcrafted soap and cosmetic guild 2 years earlier, like I would have been way ahead of the game with my business. But because I didn't want to spend the money, it was $800. And I was like, I had heard about it and I'd known that it was a really cool place to go for soap makers here in the US. Like, but I didn't want to spend the money. And I'm like, once I went and learned so much, I'm like, holy cow, if I would have just come here 2 years earlier, like my business would be so different, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's definitely something that I advise new soap makers is to invest in your knowledge or invest in learning. It's worth it because every time there's a problem. So this is another word of advice. Every time you make a batch that doesn't look perfect, that has like, let's say air bubbles in it or some weird things happened or this happened, like really do your research on why that happened. Because there's an answer to every single question. There's an answer to that question. Yeah. So really question what happened so that you don't repeat the same mistake. Like get in the books, get online and research why this happened to your soap so that you don't do it again. Because my problem is that I was always in such a hurry that I kept thinking that if I just hurried faster or if I just whatever, the soap would get better. But I kept making mistakes and like my soap was never like beautiful until I went to the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild and learned so many techniques, you know? What else? Don't be afraid to spend money. Make sure you research the problems with your soap. Keep it simple. That was a word of advice that I'm just passing on to all of the people that are listening to this podcast. But I went to a big trade show in Las Vegas and a lady came up to my booth and her and her husband ran a soap making business in Georgia. Wow. And she saw my product and just said, your product is beautiful. You have so much potential. She's like, just get ready because soap making is a big, big business right now. Like a lot of people are going back to nature. And she just told me like, my biggest advice is to keep it simple. Like, don't think you have to use so many different ingredients to make it more luxurious. And I think the reason why is because I was totally doing that. Like the soap I had made that year, like I was using, you know, all these different oils for this soap and all these different other oils for this one. And I was using all these weird herbs and all these, you know, neroli and all these different oils that was just like so exotic. And I kept thinking like, hey, I need to find even more exotic oils. Like I want to be making like even more exotic soaps, you know, but when it comes down to it, like once the oils are mixed with lye, like if you have the right recipe, you don't need such exotic oils. Like you could have a basic recipe and it does the same thing. It lathers at the same. It's equally as hard. It makes your skin soft. It doesn't dry your skin out. It doesn't leave the film. And you don't need all these exotic oils that are so expensive. And most people don't even care about that. Like, oh, you know, they look at the ingredient list. If it says olive oil, coconut oil, shea butter, avocado oil, and essential oils, they're happy.
That's right.
You know, if the ingredient list says neroli oil and baobab oil and all these weird oils, it's like they don't care, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that was like such a good piece of advice that she gave me because I was like constantly trying to make my soaps more exotic. And they still sold when I went back to the basics. Like, just keep it simple. You don't need all these, you know, you don't need 15 different oils for one batch of soap. You five, keep it 5 max. Like 5 different oils, and that will create a very luxurious bar of soap. And also just using herbs and botanicals. Like I was using all these different nettle leaf and all these different things that was like, people did not care about any of that. Like they just didn't, you know? So yeah, that's my word of advice. Keep it simple. There's no need to get all exotic and all, you know, expending all this money on stuff because a lot of people just want natural soap. They don't really care about all those exotic things.
Yeah. And even in my range, I've got like quite a few different recipes, but by far my most popular bar, and I can make them look so different. That's another thing too. Like you can have your base recipe and have 10 different soaps with the base recipe, but they all look and smell different. So I think people get lost in thinking you have to, like you said, add all these things, but you can have one base recipe and 10 or 20 different styles, and they're all very different from each other. And, you know, like, don't get too lost in, like you were saying, adding all these extra stuff. The most popular bar in my range is 70% olive oil, 30% coconut oil. That's my staple recipe, and everyone just loves it. It is so popular. It is so gentle on the skin. It lathers up nice. It cleanses just the right amount, and no issues whatsoever. Like, everyone just loves it. And I make them different, like, because I like to make my own milks, like almond milk and oat milk. And to make like it more luxurious, I might add with one recipe some oat milk in there for the complete water phase. And it's still the two base oils, but it creates like a really creamy lather, and it's so hydrating. And it's simple. It's kept simple. It's not anything fancy, like in terms of, you know, all the imports. And it's just as effective. Like, people love it, and it's absolutely right. I agree with it. People don't care. As soon as they see, olive, you know, coconut, essential oils, and they're on board. That's it. That's all they need to look at. Three things I think are so important. As long as it looks good, smells good, and effective. Those three things, that's it. It'll sell itself once people try it. I think that's probably the way people should go. They shouldn't really be trying to compete with other soap makers. Oh, you know, I have to stand out, I have to add all these extra things. You know, you don't really need to do all that. So
I totally agree.
Yeah. And what's your favorite, like, recipe to make in your range? Like, what bar is your most favorite bar you just love making?
So I love making my lavender bar. It's so basic and simple. Lavender is such a common scent that a lot of soap makers use. But I think what I love about it is that like we talked about before, I learned how to use an essential oil blend that like makes the lavender essential oil scent stick. And so every time I make it, the scent is so strong and it just smells so good. And I use alkanet root to color the a bottom layer of it purple. In fact, I just made my lavender batch today. It's in there curing right now. But I use alkanet root to make it purple, the bottom layer. And it's just so fun. It's so fun using color, like natural colors that work. Yeah. And it's a purple color and it's natural. I didn't have to use anything synthetic or any synthetic micas or anything to make it purple. And it just smells so good, and it's such a long-lasting scent. And I feel like because I struggled for 2 years with the lavender bar, because every time, no matter how much essential oil I put in, it wouldn't stick. It would be gone after a few days. It would be gone. Then I feel like now it's just it's like a pride and joy. Like I conquered that obstacle, and it's like thriving. And my lavender bar is one of my best-selling bars. And but yeah, I love it, and it's really fun to make.
Mm-hmm. And for good reason. Lavender is just so calming, and I think it's just so skin friendly. I think any skin type can use it, and there's no issues. Even, you know, some people use it on baby skin too, like in soaps, and that's fine. I think it's just one of those essential oils that I think it doesn't discriminate against anyone. Like anyone can use it.
Agree.
Yeah. And what are your favorite oils to work with in terms like of carrier oils? What are your two top favorite oils?
Well, like you said, I love using olive oil. Mm-hmm. I make sure and buy virgin olive oil. I don't like pomace, I don't like the refined olive oil. I love using the most high quality oils. Yeah. I love using coconut oil. So those are my two number ones, but then I use 3 other oils that are really good. Shea butter.
Oh, yes.
So that's not an oil, it's a butter, but I use shea butter. Yeah. Avocado oil and castor oil. I use them in small percentages in my batches, but I have just discovered that those 5 oils put together create a really good bar of soap. They lather up beautifully. They make my skin feel incredible. And so that is, those 5 oils I use in most of my recipes. There's some recipes like the shaving bar, my rosemary shampoo bar, and a couple other bars that I don't use. I use other oils for those bars, but those 5 oils are in most of my recipes.
Yeah, right, excellent. Yeah, I love shea butter. I would say that's probably third in line, shea butter. After olive and coconut. Yeah, definitely. And what about like additives? Like your favorite colorants or like essential oils? What would you say your favorite ones are?
Well, for colorants, I already was talking about this before, but alkanet root, using that for purple. And then I use a natto seed powder for a yellow or a dark orange. I just infuse my oils in it, and then I get a really, really beautiful orange color or dark yellow. So I like using that. And then I use rose kaolin clay for pink.
Love it.
And that in quite a few of my different blends. So yeah, those are my top 3 like natural colorants that I use. I also use chlorophyll and chlorella powder for green. But the green comes out super green in the beginning, but as it cures, it lines up.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part about that one. Like, I wish the green color would stay the way it looks when I first cut it, because it's so beautiful. But it definitely fades with time, but it's still like a light, subtle green, and it's really pretty. As far as essential oils go, I love working with essential oils that don't cause the soap to seize. So obviously, like lavender, tea tree, patchouli. I love sweet orange. I like working with that one. Which other one?
Not rose geranium.
Okay, rose geranium is so hard. I use it in my rose petal soap, and I've had some crazy bad experiences with it. But I've learned to overcome chemistry and conquer it, and I like now I don't have those issues. But rose geranium's one, and then even clove and cinnamon and ginger. So I've been using those essential oils in my fall blends, because fall is coming up here on this side of the world. Fall is coming, and so I'm using those essential oils, and it makes the process like probably 2 hours longer every day, because I have to pour 1 mold at a time instead of 8 molds at a time. And if I want to do layered soap, then it even takes longer. So it's very time consuming to work with those essential oils, because they cause the soap to seize. So you have to make small batches, stir by hand instead of with a hand beater. But I feel like there's always a sense of like accomplishment when I finish a batch of soap that is used with one of those essential oils that causes the soap to seize, because I feel like I got you, like, I got it, like
not this time.
And it's just fun. So, but it's definitely more work for sure.
Another notorious one is ylang ylang. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That seizes up really fast.
Yes. And for a lot of soap makers, they don't understand this about essential oils. So they have like a lot of bad batches because they don't know which essential oils cause the soap to seize. My advice for that is any floral scents, especially rose geranium, causes soap to seize. And like rose geranium and ylang ylang, those two.
Oh, yeah.
And also any of the spicy ones like cinnamon, clove, ginger. Those ones are very tricky. So keep an eye out for those.
Yes, definitely. And I was going to ask what your most popular bar is, but I think you answered that before. The lavender bar, wasn't it?
Lavender is really popular. Another one that's super popular is the activated charcoal and tea tree. I think that a lot of people are looking for skin healing because they have like a skin condition.
Yes.
And so that one's really popular. My rose petal bar is really popular. I don't know why. I think there's a lot of people that just love the smell of rose.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sweet orange hibiscus. That one is very popular. So it sells out a lot. And it's actually a really hard batch to make because I use tea, like hibiscus tea for the water portion.
Right, yeah.
And so I have to like make the tea and then wait for it to cool and then mix it with lye and wait for it to cool again. So it's like super, super time consuming, but it's a super fun bar to make and it's very rewarding when I cut it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Shoot, let me think. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. I mean, so just a few pointers, like, there's a couple of things that help the scent of the soap stay in, and I didn't know this until later, like years later. But I always soap at 95 degrees because that helps retain the scent of the essential oil. It doesn't burn on the initial contact with the soap. Also, I use kaolin clay. It's a white clay. I use 1 tablespoon per pound of soap. And I mix it in 1 tablespoon of water, and I blend it in my oils really good before I add the lye. And the clay helps retain the scent as well. So I do like 3 different things. That was my biggest challenge with natural soap making, is retaining the scent of the essential oils. And so doing those 3 things, soaping at 95 degrees, mixing kaolin clay, and then using fixatives in my essential oil blends. Those 3 things really helped keep the scent in. And but yeah, I mean, that's it really.
Yeah, definitely. I find, because the soap reaction, the saponification process over, especially the 48-hour period, and especially the first 24 hours, if you're soaping at a higher temperature, it's only going to get higher in the next 24 hours. So, but if you soap at a lower, then it'll get to about 50 degrees Celsius. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with Celsius. I think 50 degrees Celsius is, I think about 95 or 105 or something. I don't know. I'm really bad with the differences. But I think around the 95 mark, I think that's around 45 degrees. Yeah. Well, that's the max anyway. I don't like it to go over 50. And so I soap at 35, and after I cut it, and it's doing all the reaction when it's curing, I get my thermometer, my temperature gun, and I go on. It sits around 45 to 50, and I find keeping it under that definitely keeps the scent in as well. So I happen to agree with that. Soap at lower temperatures, yeah, absolutely, especially with your more delicate essential oils.
Yeah.
And I find 100% coconut oil soaps, they're beautiful, but they're harder to scent because they go really hot. Even if you soap at really cool temperatures, it'll just go so hot. It'll go up to 70, 75 degrees, and most blends won't survive that. So I think that's an important one to mention for the other soap makers.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing about me, I don't recommend making soap 100% coconut oil, because coconut oil can be very drying for the skin, and it also gets really hard, and it's really hard to cut. So I in the books that I've read, and in the soap circles that I've surrounded myself with, like, they don't recommend using more than 30% coconut oil in your recipes. But
yeah. Well, it depends. Have you tried a 100% coconut oil soap with 20% superfat?
I haven't. Should I?
Very, yes.
Is it good? Yeah. Okay, so 100% coconut oil soap with 20% superfat? 20%
superfat, yeah. It's one of my most popular bars. I do agree with, I don't put them in molds, like where you're going to cut it, because it does get very hard. I put them in pop-out molds. Like, I've got those really nice big bars. They weigh, well, let me think about ounces. I think ounces, I think it'll be about 12 ounces it'll weigh. They're quite big, like it's a big bar. But they're really popular, and my second most popular bar is I use ocean water. And I use that for the water portion, and I do 100% coconut oil with 20% superfat. And I kid you not, like, there's something about the salt water and that recipe that It depends on the season. Like I find in winter, I can't really use that much because it does dry. But if you're in summer periods where your skin is going to be oily from the sweating and the temperature, 100% coconut oil, 20% superfat is the best thing. So it just depends on climate. I guess in Australia it gets really hot here in summer, and in autumn as well it's really, really humid. So I think maybe for us here that recipe will work really well. I don't know if the temperature gets that high where you are. I'm not sure. Does it get really hot and humid where you are?
Oh yeah, it doesn't get humid, but it gets extremely hot.
It's really hot. Yeah. So I think, maybe try it. Just try it for yourself. Just try a small batch. Just see how you go.
Okay, well, thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely have to give that a try. It sounds very interesting.
It is very nice. And I also add coconut milk to it, just to give it that extra hydration, because it is your coconut oil. You want to add extra hydration when you can. And the coconut milk with it as well is really nice. So give it a try.
I will. Thank you so much.
Right, so that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate you contacting me, and I wish you all the best of luck on your soap making journey. And I'm going to have to go check out your guys' your channel on YouTube.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. And I hope you enjoyed the videos. And thanks again for agreeing to be a part of the Soap Makers Lounge. I really enjoyed this conversation.
You're very welcome. It was so nice to meet you, and hopefully we'll, have future conversations.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Thanks so much again.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.